sometimes it's dangerous to have a great opening scene or opening number because you can't stop it. Well, you start at 11, where can you go? You know, you're just sort of
And
okay.
like for it to be 1931 when they, or maybe even earlier when they filmed it, like I guess it would have been because it didn't come out till February. So like you think about like what I thought was so fascinating was the fact they had like cameras on the ground, like the horses are running over the cameras, and like I mean we're talking about what 2 years and since they had sound. I mean
Yeah,
like it's just. But I agree,
crazy.
James, and it actually was very funny. I really that scene cracked me up seeing the different people. Like you had the families, and you had the one dude on the big wheel bike just strolling like he was. I mean, like that's
Oh,
to me that's hilarious, you know.
that's
Uh,
great.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 5 of the Chicago Cinephiles. I am your co-host Daniel. Joined with me as always is Stephen and James, my fellow co-host. How we doing today, fellas?
Good, good, very good. What about you, James?
Great. Another Friday. It's gonna be a great day.
It's very
Or
cold
or
here.
is it
Very
a Friday? We don't know.
Could it be a Thursday?
We don't know when this is being recorded.
Is it 2 a.m.? Do you know where your children are?
Alrighty, so before we get started, as always, I wanted to see if you guys had any last minute comments or questions before I pull up the comment of the day from last week. Um,
You mean about Ben Hur?
about Ben-Hur. Did you guys have any epiphanies while we were?
No, but I'll tell you what it has corrupted my YouTube channel so that everything when I look at to scroll things and look at what it's Ben Hur this, Ben Hur that. Everything's
Really?
driving me crazy. I see
I think
more
there's like an
shirtless Charlton
anniversary.
Heston. It's crazy.
I think
It
there's
might
like an
be.
anniversary for Ben Hur too, because my YouTube feed has also been corrupted.
Crazy.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
get out of here, Heston.
So we don't have any interesting comments yet for Coda because that was just released, but we are going to go ahead and we do have some interesting ones from My Fair Lady, so I want to read that one off.
Yay.
This comes from the lovely R Bonnet 00. She says, "What fun. Good job, guys. I'm from London. I'm not that old, and the class thing was alive and well even in the 80s. It was common at job interviews to be asked, 'What does your father do for a living?' Wow."
Wow.
So, I mean, that maybe explains some of the why that movie still kind of hits because it's still going on. So I thought it's kind of interesting that class system is still a thing there.
And she says that, and I've been to London one time. I was 12 years old at peak 80s. I was 12. I was 82, and I vividly remember a businessman talking to this punk with like green hair, spiked all of the craziness.
Hmm.
It led, and they were just chatting. Just having this. I was like, wow, that you wouldn't see that in the United States.
I
But
thought you were about to say you were in a job interview at 12
yes, I was. My father put me to work. I
as
was
as a chimney sweep.
alms, alms for a miserable, that kind of thing.
Alrighty, so that being said, this week the Wheel of Fate shows the lovely 1931 movie called Cimarron. So we are going to kind of go over that and explain a little bit about, kind of going on what happened, go over some details, obviously, and then we will jump right in. This is arguably voted the worst, usually voted one of the worst um, best pictures of all time. So this ought to be interesting. It was released in February 9th, 1931, which when you see what was going on during this time period, like in my head, the 30s were only like 50 or 60 years ago, just because like that's how my head works. Because I feel like, I was born in the 80s. So like I don't know why I just had that mentality. And it's like, no, it's almost 100 years. And so we'll get into like what was legalized during that time period. And that would kind of just like put it into reference how old this movie is. It does star Richard Dix. which is kind of ironic. Yancey, he plays Yancey Kravitz. Irene Dunn is Sabra Kravitz. And then that's really the two main ones. There's a few like side ones that I know Steven likes, which we'll get into, but those are kind of the two that are on the cover, basically. Looks like it was based on a novel from Edna Ferber, in 1930. So, like, for it to only be a year old and then already come out, that's kind of interesting.
That surprised me as well.
Yeah, because
Quick
usually
turnaround.
usually books take a little while to kind of get popular, but no, they're right on it. Budget of about 1.5 million. So decent. I mean, that's still pretty good, you know.
Well,
Hmm.
that's like 30-ish million dollars in today's money.
Yeah, so
Which
it's
is
not
swingers money. It's nothing.
nothing to scoff at, you know. It was nominated for Best Actor, Best Actress, and I think it was nominated for Best Directing as well. It did win Best Art Direction, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Motion Picture.
Yeah.
Another interesting fact is that this was before what was called pre-code Hollywood or Hays Code. So they didn't have any type of censorship. Basically, essentially, the way that the actual definition for it is, it's the era that occurred between the widespread adoption of sound and film in the late 20s and the enforcement of the Motion Picture Production Code censorship guidelines in 1934. So really, they could do what they wanted to do in theory.
Yeah, very much so. And it says a
So
lot about these actors that they went from talkies into, I mean, from silent era into talkies. I mean, many, many, many didn't survive. So
Norma Desmond.
it's not a comeback, it's a return. I hate that word.
Um,
Uh,
but yeah, so we obviously are going to dive more into it, but first, we may do something a little bit different here. I'm not sure if Steven wants to do a summary or if he maybe even have a actual movie review from that time period, because from what I'm sure we've all read that it was very, very loved during this time period.
Very much
So I'll
so.
be curious to hear what Steven has to say. So Steven, why don't you take it away?
Oh, I take it away. I do have it's a little bit longer of a synopsis, but it will sort of suffice, I think. But it's 1889, and the government has just opened the Oklahoma Territory for settlement. Yancey Cravat, a larger-than-life, thrill-seeking newspaperman, convinces his genteel wife, Sabra, to join him in the brand new untamed town of Osage. Yancey publishes a progressive newspaper in town, and he and Sabra begin their family, settle into the community, and work to bring order to the wildly growing town. But as the town becomes more tame, Yancey grows restless until he impetuously leaves Sabra and their young children to seek new claims further west. Uh, Alone, Sabra inherits the newspaper's editorial duties and struggles to raise her children and bring civilization to the rough frontier town. Over a tumultuous 40-year period, Yancey leaves Sabra again and again as Oklahoma makes its long journey to statehood. There you go. And you're right. I mean, many, many. I can look over the New York Times review here, but I mean, it's it's very a graphic and engrossing screen conception of Edna Ferber's wildly read novel Cimarron was presented by Radio Pictures last night at the Globe before a keenly interested audience. I mean, he just goes, P.S. This reviewer's name is Mordaunt Hall, Mordaunt. You know,
That's a
it's
name.
better than blanket.
That's a name you don't hear every day.
Yeah, Mordaunt, Morty, could you come here, please? But this picture, a stupendous undertaking in view of the time that is covered and the hosts of persons on its screens and its scenes, starts with the land rush 40 years ago
Mm.
to the Indian Territory, now known as the state of Oklahoma. It ends in 1930 with many of the characters who were still in the first scene surviving. So, I mean, and if you look at the movie posters from that time, it's sort of thrilling movie posters,
Mhm.
so this sort of,
I
very.
love those old timey movie posters.
Oh, it's great. So people I think really did love or think this was a best picture winner. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, let's kind of talk about what was going on during this time period because
Mhm,
that may kind of, summarize or kind of help us better understand
mhm.
just why this was so groundbreaking. Because now, we're looking at this obviously in 2025's eyes, so we're going to have a different view. In March of that year, the Star Spangled Banner was adopted as a national anthem.
Wow.
Nevada legalized gambling.
All right.
In
Atta girl.
in October of that year, Al Capone was convicted of tax evasion, and then Thomas Edison dies. So
Wow.
you think, this, I mean, these are a long, there's obviously more, but that's kind of the things that happen in the US. I mean, that really, in my opinion, that kind of puts it in perspective about this movie was a very long time ago.
Yes. I mean, we're coming up on the 100 years of Oscars very,
Yeah.
very soon,
Yeah.
which
And
stunning to me.
I think it's really cool that like these type of projects that we're doing opens our eyes to these types of movies. Yeah, we might not have really had the best time, but these types of things are like this is kind of what we talk about with Coda last week. It was like or 2 weeks ago is like Oscar winners they'll survive a test of time. Usually, people are going to watch them to see why it won.
Yeah. And I love what we're doing because it has opened me up to, well, I'll explain more about it later on, but really to new actors I had never seen before. And I know a lot of actors. Daniel could attest that I'm an IMDb freak,
Yeah.
but but it's kind of thrilling to go, I never would have watched this, and see new people. And then I go onto their page. Oh, they've worked with this person this movie. I got to see this movie now. There's 3 movies now I have to see with one of these actors. So I'll be watching over the weekend. So it's sort of piqued my interest in other movies as well. It's really great.
James, what about you? Do you have any interesting trivia or anything like that, or kind of get started, or
On the Oscars or the movie?
the
Sorry.
movie?
Well, it's kind of cool because the town progresses 40 years. The town's kind of like the main character,
Hmm.
Hmm,
and that's how I see it
I
because
like
you see
that.
this town evolve from the founding up until the 1930s. So you have yeah, towards the end of the Wild West period to Great Depression. Um, like it's an interesting looking at it. In order to do that, they purchased like 89 acres or metric people. That's 36 hectares. Uh,
You did that very
uh,
fast. That's
no,
amazing.
I did not have that pre-written or anything. Um, so they did a Western town, and they made the Western town. They built a Western town. They built three city blocks of the
Crazy.
town, which I thought was cool. So
Mm,
like it was a big production. Like it was like I think the biggest movie ever spent
mm.
on
And
at
it's
that
the
point.
second movie we've watched in a row that they're building the entire town. So
Yeah.
you're walking around in it like, wow, this is awesome. I don't think Italians came to this one, but
Also, I think one of the facts is like I don't think there's any surviving recordings of them winning the Oscars.
oh
Maybe
wow.
there is, but I looked for it and I couldn't find anything.
Couldn't find anything either.
Even radio. So I don't think that's kind of interesting. But Stephen, do you have any interesting or trivia before I move on?
Well, I mean, I've got a few things. I mean, this was Irene Dunn's second film. I'm not sure what her first one was, but she lobbied hard for this so much that
Hmm.
they didn't really think she could pull off to take this lead and also to do the range of ages. So she hired M. Westmore of the Westmore makeup family to do her makeup from 16 to 56
Wow.
so that she could have these pictures taken of her aging and sent them, and that's how she landed the job.
Wow.
So it's really it's commitment. I kind of love that, and even though I think many people in modern times, if that's something I can say, find this movie to be rather boring or overdone or something. I mean, Ed Ferber other two major books, are Showboat, which became a major musical and has been done on film a few times, and also Giant. I mean, we're talking Rock Hudson, we're talking, Elizabeth Taylor, James Dean's last film. So there's something about her books that lead themselves, I think, well to movies. And and also I fell in love with the woman who plays the sort of goody goody. I just fell in love with her. Where's my stuff on her? She cracked me up every time. Just the way she said wallpaper. I mean, just the way she did everything just made me so happy. And she, in the first scene she has, Edna May Oliver is her name, plays Mrs. Wyatt. She talks about how she's a descendant of one of the signers of the Constitution. Well, Edna May Nutter, she was born Edna May Nutter, born 9th of November 1883. She is a direct descendant of John Adams, the second president. and John Quincy Adams.
Like in real
So
life?
yes, that
Hmm.
yes. I was like, what? You know, and apparently I haven't found what they are, but I don't know if you all are as big fans of pardon me, Warner Brothers cartoons from like the 30s as I am, but they often sort of had movie stars in them. They would do these sort of broad characters, and she was often parodied in those Warner
Hmm.
Brothers cartoons. So now I'm going to go back and I'll do one more person to to see,
That's pretty
and
cool.
she apparently that one scene where she's singing, you know, in the pew. She had a very lovely voice and was asked why you've never done a musical or opera, and she said, "What with a horse face like mine? What
Wow.
else can I do but play comedy?" So
So
I
so
thought
she
she
was
was great.
Cher before Cher.
Oh, yes. My father will hurt you for that, but yes.
Alrighty, so then let's move on to what our initial thoughts on the movie were. James, I'll let you go first on this one. Did you have any initial thoughts going in? What did you expect?
I knew it was a Western, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And didn't have much expectations other than we'll see how the characters play out. And but it was, it's not a good film.
Yeah, I knew it was. I knew going in it had a lot of problematic theming, which we'll get into. But that was kind of my, that's all I knew about it basically going in. So I knew that we were all kind of dreading it because of the rating, but you know, but so that was mine.
I didn't rate it. I didn't rate it because of the rating. I just knew nothing about it other than Cimarron Western, and I think I enjoyed it more than most. I wasn't sort of turned off by the rather melodramatic acting at times, uh, and I wasn't turned off by the story, sort of going in and out and. Yancey sort of, is in the picture, now he's gone. And he's in the picture, and he's gone. I found some of that really, really interesting. I like I said, I just fell in love with, with Edna May Oliver. So I rather enjoyed it. I could take 2 hours of this film. The only thing I had a problem with was the sound because they filmed this mostly outdoors. So it took a lot of sort of innovation to get the sound onto the film
Mm.
more than doing it inside of a studio. So that's why a lot of it was. I had to pull up a script just so I could go. What did they just say? What was what was this? So that was
Well,
my only difficulty with it, but I kind of enjoyed it.
I think the best part of the movie is the first 10 minutes. Like,
Absolutely. That's where I was going to start. I was going to say, let's just hop right
Hmm.
in. Like, I agree, James. Go ahead. Like, talk about that first few
Yeah.
minutes.
so like the first few minutes, it's like the Oklahoma land rush, and it was interesting. Like, they did the little title sequence, give the little backstory, and then like everyone up, all right, it's a line. We're gonna, it's a time. We're gonna shoot off a gun, and everyone go claim a plot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that bar of the movie, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't gonna be as bad as I thought. And
Hmm.
then it was such an epic scene, them running
It just
through
went
Yeah.
because
down.
it just went downhill.
Sometimes it's dangerous to have a great opening scene or opening number because you can't stop it. Well, you start at 11, where can you go? You're just sort of
And
okay.
like for it to be 1931 when they, or maybe even earlier when they filmed it, like I guess it would have been because it didn't come out till February. So like you think about like what I thought was so fascinating was the fact they had like cameras on the ground, like the horses are running over the cameras, and like I mean we're talking about what, 2 years and since they had sound. I mean,
Yeah,
like it's just. But I agree,
crazy.
James, and it actually was very funny. That scene cracked me up, seeing the different people. Like you had the families, and you had the one dude on the big wheel bike just strolling like he was. I mean, like
Oh,
to me that's hilarious. You know.
it was very fun.
Um,
It took. I was reading it took. They had 5,000 extras, 28
Yeah.
cameramen, six still photographers, and
it's
27
crazy.
camera assistants to get that. And it reminded me very much, and I'm sure it will remind other people, of the final scene in was it Far From Home or what is that one kid, was it Tom Cruise but it's the same thing. They're doing the Oklahoma rush, and it's not any better than this. This is
Yeah, it was
just as good.
really well done. I got to give them props for that. It kind of felt like, and this was the first thing I wrote down when I watched it was, to me, it felt like this was meant to be a silent film, just because of how bad, like Steven said, the sound quality, but also like whenever the lady of the night steals the horse, it speeds it up, and that's a very
Yeah,
common thing, like in those types of movies where to me, it just felt like it was meant to be a silent film.
yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that was just kind of, I agree, James. I feel like that scene was very awesome. And honestly, some of the other effects was pretty cool too, like the shootout that Yancey has, uh,
Oh,
kind of middle of the thing whenever he has to fight I guess, gangster or whatever, and he shoots him in the arm. Like
uh-huh.
it obviously cuts, you can tell that it does, but then like it's like it's a pretty good cut scene. Like I gotta give them credit for that.
Yeah,
I
very
don't know.
much
There are
so.
some pretty good scenes. Like I think good scenes for the production. Like, but the story is where it just
Yeah.
falls flat.
I didn't mind the story. I minded the weirdness of this guy who just had so much wanderlust or need for adventure or whatever you might call it. I think that they tried to marry his progressive stances with this wanderlust. And I didn't get that. I got he's got to get out of here. He's got to
Yeah,
be
there's
where
no
it's
like I feel like there was no connection with him.
yeah. He
Well,
all I could think with those boots he reminded me of Elvis. I was like, this is like that early Elvis.
Yeah, it was really Elvis. I agree.
He was gonna sing Roustabout at some point,
well, clearly because he's mostly portrayed in white, so clearly he's the good guy in the
The
story.
Hmm.
white hat, yeah.
The white hat,
The White
he's
Knight.
comes in, white knight, like he comes in like, and then the uh ruffians or
Yeah.
cowboys or whatever they're
Yeah.
called comes in and try shooting up the place, and they're cartoonishly like they're wearing them. I guess it's establishing the wild westerns like bad people wear black.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
We don't need no
like the
stinking
first
bitches. It's
first
like crazy.
western to win an Oscar. But it's just had some weird things in there.
I really
Like he's
enjoyed the
like a
scene.
Renaissance man,
Oh yeah,
maybe.
I mean, he's a lawyer. He's a newspaper man. He's a preacher. Like what?
He's
Okay.
a sheriff. Yeah, like
That also shows you can be anything in the Wild West.
Yeah, okay. I wish I was there. I could be somebody else. That'd be right.
You still couldn't find a job. I'm just
It's
playing with
funny
you.
because it's
I'm
true.
just playing with you. Before we get too far in though, like the one thing I did want to mention, so the kid's name is Cimarron. Obviously, that's where it comes from, and it looks like it's Spanish for wild and unruly, but Google Translate says it means bighorn. I kind of
Hmm.
feel like Yancey should have been called Cimarron because he
Hmm.
was the unruly one, the one that couldn't, as my mom would say, you can't sit still in church.
Yeah,
Like he couldn't
and he
sit
is called
still.
Sim. Don't they call him Cimarron at some point? I mean, in the
I don't
beginning.
know.
I
I
mean, what are
mean,
the gangsters? Not gangsters. What
they
are
call
the
the son that. Obviously, that's the
yeah,
son's name. I didn't know that was
yeah.
what the.
And
But
with Cimarron meaning that Yancey means is a Native American term meaning Yankee or Englishman.
oh,
So it's
cool.
kind of a neat
That
little,
kind of fits that too. Then
Yancey. I mean, how many boys do you know named Yancey? Lord, I'd have been killed in high school if my name was Yancey.
um,
Hi, Yancey. How you doing? Where's your
he's
purse?
Nancy. Um, but yeah, let's because we do have to acknowledge that there is a lot of problematic things with this film. And so I think we both have like may not even have to be a conversation for all of us because we're all kind of in agreement. The racial stereotypes here are pretty severe. We acknowledge that, and obviously, we don't condone that or anything like that. So we uh,
But-
we
and the
acknowledge it.
opposite of that is that they're talking about a story with a wanton woman that he defends in court. He defends the rights of Native Americans long before anybody thought that was proper. I mean, this is a very progressive man, and you have a balance of it with this these sort of stereotypes. You go, whoa,
Yeah, that
you
that
know,
was sort of my
very
next point.
weird.
So yeah, we'll get into that. But back to the problematic things. Just like apparently it's called like a Stepin Fetchit type
Yeah.
caricature. So I think it's how you say
Hmm.
the word. I struggle with that word. Where it's like speaking in like a hound dog drawl, and even spoiler for those that may actually watch this movie. Skip forward a few seconds. When the little boy who is African American, whenever he dies, he even says Master Yancey,
Yes, he
and
does.
this is in this is 1880, so like slavery is
Mhm.
not a thing anymore.
Wow. Wow, wow,
And
wow.
it's just, so they portray obviously Native Americans very bad, as well as African Americans very, very stereotypical. And I think even Jewish people as well. So
I
there's a
didn't
lot of
get the
stereotypes in
I
there.
didn't get the badness from that because I felt such I felt a lot of empathy for that character, for Saul, because he's got a notions thing on his back. He struggled, and those guys sort of, bully him and try to make him drink. And he seemed uh, so little and so tender, and he couldn't really stand up for himself. And I felt there was a lot of I felt so much empathy for that character and his arc throughout the movie. Really liked how he sort of came with Sabra and they became friends, and
Hmm.
you know, and his business grew. And but I really felt that was a very strong, um, you know, portrayal of a Jewish person.
James, anything you want to add to this? Probably not, because it's kind of pretty
I mean,
pretty
it
self-explanatory.
is
Like,
self-explanatory. There's a lot of problematic
Now,
characters.
where are the gay
Yes,
characters?
there are some redeeming arcs for some people,
which we'll definitely get into. Yeah,
Mhm.
like some of those scenes were just like you'd like look at your head and you're like, why?
yeah, yeah.
I
It
looked at
it
my
like
imaginary friend like,
it
oh my
just
god, what's
doesn't it just doesn't move the plot. Like I understand maybe because that was like the way people thought back then, but like it doesn't even you can't even argue and say like, oh, this pushes the plot forward or whatever. It doesn't. No, it's just flat out terrible. But as Stephen kind of mentioned earlier, let's go ahead and get into. There is some progressive moments
oh,
in
very much
this. For me, I think of the fact that Sabra. It's kind of ironic, is like she makes the comment about Native Americans being nasty,
yeah.
but then she basically like becomes an independent woman in the 1880s to the 1930s. Like she doesn't care
Hmm.
about the fact that I mean obviously she's happy when Yancey comes back, but it really shows that she's strong and that she's just not like whatever will I do now that my husband's not here. She just tied her bootstraps and went and did what
There
she
you
had
go.
to do.
And I found that to be, I would imagine in the novel, there's a more gradual progression for her character to
Mm.
go from those nasty, dirty, filthy Indians to proudly introducing her daughter-in-law.
Yeah,
She's brought just and being so proud of that relationship. That is quite a leap for the movie, which I'm sure
absolutely.
the novel has a little bit more of an arch to it. So, but yeah,
You
you're
know,
right. It's very, very progressive.
the movie does skip around. Like it goes from like either doing the thing like what in 1907 that Native
Yeah.
American like the paper did Native Americans deserve equal rights to 1930 they're rerunning the story to commemorate the end of the 40th
Mhm.
anniversary of the paper. Like one of the editorials. It's like it's the jumps are not good. And then where did Yancey go during the 5 years where he fought in a war, the Spanish
Honey,
American
Yeah,
War? Apparently,
yeah.
like
honey.
it's
That's the
just
movie I want to see. I want to see what he's doing when he's out and about. Because
What?
even before the movie, he's got all these people who are, he's sort of like Nick Charles in the Thin Man movies. He knows all these underground people. Nick Charles does it because he arrested them. This character, was he working with them? I don't know, but he's lived on the edge, shall we say, quite a bit. Yancey has.
Yeah, I think he fits to me, and maybe this is part of the character. Maybe he's that old Western like character that doesn't like can't survive in like their modern times because of like established towns. Like maybe he's too
Yeah.
much of a cowboy or a Cimarron. But don't you know?
Hey, that's the
Um,
title.
yeah, yeah. Hey, I did a thing. Uh,
Wow.
but also, I do think, and I'm gonna give a little bit of credit for Yancey, as Steven mentioned, the fact that he recognized Native Americans as equal.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if I'm willing to give him credit for representing the whatever the word they want to use, the Lady of the Night. Like, is there underlying things like was he trying to, did he have a past with her and that's why he was trying to help her, or it just usually people don't
yeah,
defend, that. So I don't know. Just that's just my thoughts.
he
Yeah.
needs to keep her out of jail because she's the one that stole her land, stole her his
Right.
land. So
Yeah, there you
he
go.
can't be bested by somebody of questionable morals.
And that
And
scene was so crazy. Like the scene where she steals it. It's just like,
oh,
hey,
great.
wait a minute. Like
And I'll bet the horse didn't even break a leg. He shot the damn horse.
yeah.
And
Oh,
he's like, oh, come on. Really? Crazy. How'd he
and then
get
she
back?
gets run off the land anyway. But
Yeah. So it's like sweet justice in the end. Am I right?
But in the
oh,
trial, what struck me, and there was a moment that Irene Dunn did this look. like when he was talking about, and she was left alone. This poor woman left alone with no way to earn a living or to. That's what you just did to your wife, pal, for
Right?
5 years. 5 years. And you walk in like, hey, what's for supper? Like, no, no, it doesn't work that way. She tried to have that argument, but you know, you can't just walk back in here. And then no sooner is he there and things get a little bit more secure, out the door again. I think in the novel, what I was reading was that Edna Ferber wanted to have this experience of the reader to feel as if this really engaging character is gone. And now we're continuing with the narrative, and they're missing that character until he
Hmm.
comes back, and then they're so happy to see him, and then he's gone. But in the film, because they're flipping forward so many years, it doesn't feel that way. I think it's a modern audience. We don't feel. We just go, what's this schmuck doing? Leaving his wife in the old west. He just defended a
several
bank robbery.
times.
Yeah, over and over and
And
over.
then
Yeah.
doesn't write his wife to let him know that,
Yeah, it's
oh, by the way, I'm
crazy.
fighting in a war. Just,
P.S. I'm down to oil rig. You want to come see me? I'm back in town. Didn't say the word. You know,
uh,
it's just like,
uh,
this
I
guy
don't
would
know.
be cut from modern
That's where
movie.
I think the town itself is the main character versus Yancey, and I think that's maybe a better interpretation because the characters all come and go pretty randomly, and then the town itself, you're kind of there for the whole progression.
Yeah, I like that.
I
Literally from
mean,
the beginning.
yeah, and we see. I mean, it's really wild to see from 1889 to 1930.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
I got to give them credit too. That's a big like undertaking to put 40, 50 years on film
mhm.
during that time period. Man,
It's hard to put that life into that much time of a life into 2 hours. In any,
hmm.
I mean, Les Mis, guy steals some bread, pays for his life. Or oh my God, it's 2 hours. How are we going to put this in 2 hours? Same thing here.
Does anyone does anyone else think it's wild that the technological innovations that happened in those 40 years, like our 40 years would be like the 1980s, which, yeah, we have cool little communication devices, but like going from like horses, carriage,
Hmm.
and covered wagons to most people have an automobile that
Yeah.
are in the middle class.
Well, I would
Like,
say this. When I graduated in '88. I took typing class. There was no, and I had to learn how to center my what I was going to type. I did the whole, and now it feels like it's just it's so weird that now I've got these devices that can do more of that. It seems so. I feel so old that I took typing, and people. I mean, I have a keyboard here that's just dying. I kill keyboards because I'm constantly. I type like I'm back on an old Smith Corona typewriter or something, and I killed them. So there has been a lot of technological advances, but to see horseback,
Yeah.
everybody has a car.
Well, I
Whoa.
mean, even like go off of James's main character to go from a newborn, basically, as far as the town, to it being what it was in the 30s.
Hmm.
So it's like it shows the whole life of it. So I agree. I do think that our time period is pretty awesome, but that is too going from, like you said, like horse-drawn carriage. Like I don't even know if they had like, I mean, obviously, like some houses probably didn't have electricity, like so all that kind of stuff's kind of
Hmm.
pretty crazy.
I'll say this, James. A friend of mine
electrification
just.
didn't,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, electrification really didn't happen for like the rural communities until FDR. So
Yeah,
as
Hmm.
this movie is coming out, so
people in
an
my
indoor
neck of the woods,
plumbing
they were
through the
we
most of
got
the
it last
country.
week. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, my grandmother, she talks about all the time. She remembers up until she was born in the 30s. She remembers like as a teenager having outhouses, not even having bathrooms in the house.
Crazy,
I mean, it's
crazy.
just crazy the world. You think about that.
But
Um,
while we're saying this, I just have to share that a friend of mine on Facebook put a post on that said, "For you Gen Xers, the child that Madonna keeps in Papa Don't Preach is now 40 years old. You want to talk about feeling like an ancient person? That Papa Don't Preach, that kid is now a 40-year-old, and people are saying, okay, boomer, you know, boggles my mind. It's been 40 years. I know I look it, but it boggles my mind.
all right, so let's move on to the technological and cultural achievements. I think we sort of talked about at the very beginning. That opening scene was pretty awesome, honestly. Like I would say that rivals the chariot scene from Ben-Hur. Not the same,
Hmm.
obviously, but pretty impressive.
I
Like
mean, for the 1930s, yeah.
yeah, and as Steven mentioned, like the sound wasn't great, but the fact that it was even able to be on sound, like we have to give the credit to that. I mean, I
Oh,
think for me, the cultural achievement is kind of the downside of it is like it was really a product of its time, and so we really get to like have a window into the world that
yeah.
was, especially with all the problematic. And who knows, 100 years from now, the movie that just won may be problematic. You know, you just never. I mean,
Crash.
you just never know what's going to be,
Mm.
you know, problematic 100 years from now.
Yeah, but I think that's why I don't. I try not to look at at pieces of art from my perspective now. I try to look at them from the perspective of the
Yeah,
character,
yeah, you can't do
and from saying,
revisionist
look,
history.
this is what it was. I mean, to get angry at people for how they believed before, decades before you ever got here it's a little much, quite frankly. I mean, I see your point, but this just was, and I try to accept that as much as I can. But
Yeah, but
you know,
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's like we have to acknowledge the problems of it, but like not
oh yeah,
cancel it or change it because we can't do revisionist history,
yeah,
in
and you
my
can't stop
opinion.
watching it because then you people won't know about it, and heck, it might be repeated. So we have to, these things are here for us to learn from and remember
Mm.
and remind ourselves about. I think.
Well, thinking about it like now versus then. So it was, I
Oh
believe,
yeah,
the Native American tribe. It was, yes, Sligo, right?
I believe so.
Um, Now it is Killer Flower of the Moon,
Yeah.
who did not win, actually portrayed them and like the light that they deserve. So it's like if you look at
Hmm.
those two movies and
Yeah.
they're almost 100 years apart,
Wow.
and to see how the difference is, like, because spoiler alert, if you could see Killers of the Flower Moon, go see it because it's a great film.
Yeah.
But like to see the different, like to put watch that movie, the movie we're watching, and then watch the new movie, like seeing them back and forth is like an interesting contrast.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's
Um,
cool that at least not everybody was talking like that or everybody was using the stereotypes. You know, so that's
It's
pretty
like
cool.
Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Like, what is going on?
Right? Yeah.
What? I mean,
Um,
good lord.
but yeah. So then let's ask the question: should it have won Best Picture?
I'm going to say yes because I think the only other uh, nominee would be The Front Page. I think it's good. I've seen most of it. Uh, I like every incarnation of The Front Page. His Girl Friday, Switching Channels. I love all of them. Basically the same story, but I think just for the depth and the sweeping, just for the Oklahoma land rusting alone, and committing to that with RKO, I think this deserves the award because the other nominees are, you know, for me.
the well, I think Front Page should have won,
Wow.
but I'm in that camp. But the Oklahoma scene is cool, and it was like a 2 hour. It was close to a 2 hour film, which a lot of movie theaters had a hard time showing
Wow.
because of the length of the movie.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
because I think the cutoff was like 30 to 45 minutes, and literally a projector would just go. They would have it film. There'd be like this little dot, so the projectionist would know to slam one projector up, and then the other
Yeah.
would go, and then you had to reload, and so doing multiple reels was
Yeah.
hard.
That's
So if you did
crazy.
anything more than two, aka an hour and a half, kind of became an issue.
Wow.
Interesting.
So,
That's crazy.
I didn't think about that.
uh, like from a technological standpoint, this movie really pushed theater houses to have upgrade projections and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I
So
guess there's
that could
that.
be a cultural impact then, because it made people like take the movie seriously, like you said, and have spend money. Like this is not just a fad. Like movies are here to stay.
And think about how, and
I
you
mean,
look at anyone's
the
IMDb.
talkies are here to stay.
Yeah.
Talking. This talking's all they're not here. They're dead. They're finished. But to look at anyone, even the actors in this movie, look at their IMDb page and look at the movies they did in the 30s alone. They're doing 2 and 3 movies a year, if not more. So they're doing these, just turning these out, and they're not very long, especially the silent ones. 10
Yeah.
minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just crazy. They have a filmography that is gigantic. We may never have heard of them, and they
Hmm.
did 78 pictures in
Yeah.
in 12 years. Like, whoa.
I
A lot
uh
of people lost.
I agree with Steven. I think I should full disclosure, I've not seen any of these movies other than the Cimarron. And so I just kind of gonna go because that opening scene is so great in my opinion.
Yeah.
That alone had my mouth wide open in 2025. Like to me, that's the hallmark of a good movie. Obviously, there's more to it than just that, but the fact they were able to do that. Also, kind of a fun fact. I forgot the guy's name, but the actor that played the little African American boy,
Mhm.
he actually just died like 10 years ago in Harlem.
Really?
Because I
Wow.
wanted
Wow.
to see if he ever talked about like, hey, that was not cool what I was portrayed. But
Mhm.
I think he kind of just became a normal person after he kind of just did his
Mhm.
thing and like most child actors
Sure.
either they, just he's kind of rode off into the sunset.
Do you,
Um,
the thing that I found interesting, I don't know if this is a connection at all. I was looking at, what happened this year and whatnot, and looking at the people who were born this year. Stephen Boyd from Ben-Hur, born in this.
really,
Isn't that crazy? Also William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, but we'll talk about that later. You know, but I was like, Stephen Boyd, wow.
that's kind of crazy to think that Shatner's that old.
Gosh, shatastic. He's shatastic. He definitely is. But I mean, and the other part of this, these weren't nominated movies, but also released at this time. City Lights. I mean, one of the best silent movies
Yeah,
ever
that's.
made.
I
Wasn't
was
even
really
nominated.
surprised that wasn't nominated. It's like what?
Public Enemy. He puts the grapefruit in their face. Monkey Business by the Marx Brothers not going to be up there, but also Frankenstein and Dracula. They're really innovative movies, and
Dracula,
ones that we now,
1931.
yeah, ones
Yeah,
that we now resonate with us even more than
but I also
this.
think that's kind of cool too, because like horror wasn't popular, so it was just like one. That's probably why. But the other movies,
Dracula,
go ahead.
best,
Yeah.
best
Yeah,
Dracula 1931, my favorite, one
the
of my favorite movies of all time.
the other movies, just so everyone knows, that was up for nominations was East Lynne, The Front Page, Skippy, and Trader Horn. According to IMDb, Cimarron gets a 5.8, which, as I said, is the
Generous.
the lowest on.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
That was generous. 5.8.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's the
What do you really think,
lowest.
James? Come on.
It's
What
the
do you really
lowest Oscar winner. The Front Page actually is number one with 6.7. So the critics, the only one that Cimarron is higher than is East Lynne.
think? Well,
Um, but yeah, I also think this just kind of not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think this is why I know it's obviously 8 years in the future, but I think this is a big, or maybe not. Maybe yeah, I think it was. Not going with the win.
mhm.
Oh God, Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
How like
That,
because
yeah.
like how shocking and like I mean we see where this came, like because
Mhm.
Wizard of Oz was after this, right? It was 39 for Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
right? Or am I crazy?
And what a jump. My grandfather used to argue with me that The Wizard of Oz was filmed in black and white. They colorized it later. No, they didn't. No, they, I
Mm.
was to get so angry about it. But that's a large technological advance. And the sound on The Wizard of Oz is wonderful. So was Gone with the Wind. I mean, a lot of they
Yeah.
really sort of got this going
So
and put it
I
down.
think it just shows like why people were so like, oh my gosh, when this was the talk of the town 8 years
Yeah.
prior.
Yeah.
Um,
And probably the
so
length, like James said, the length alone probably went, wow, 2 hour movie? What are we crazy?
yeah, they're probably like, what is this newfangled thing?
I gotta go and pay my payment, see, and get in my car.
I also wondered about this movie because it on its initial run, it didn't make back its money.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I saw that too.
yeah.
So it's
Wow,
you know,
crazy.
learning how to budget a movie properly, maybe.
And then
That's
they
not
It
not
was only the fourth or third Oscar, so
and and and
ah,
then they retried it in 1960.
and
Um,
I think it would be
uh,
interesting for us in the future to look at the ceremony itself to see not the ceremony necessarily, but what changed per year. Like, this was, I think they added, then this year they split up best screenplay into, into new screenplay versus taken from another piece of material. So it'd be interesting to see what changes the Academy decided to make for the awards itself every year that we look at, because there have been some whoppers. Well, just this week, wasn't it, Daniel, that the Academy said that, that if you want to vote for the awards, you have to see all the movies.
Yeah,
Duh.
listen to that. Like that. Well, that's like we talked about 2 weeks ago with Coda. They just installed the handicap rail or the handicap ramp
Yeah.
in the
That's
front,
the folder they're on. It's okay. We're
and
gonna put the
then
handicaps for
and then this week, like I sent these guys, I got text message saw that they're now the Academy Awards are now making it. You have to, in order to vote, you have to watch every movie like that
Well,
was
I saw the
nominated.
trailer.
I
I
mean,
thought it was really good. Like what?
I mean,
Oh my god.
that's fair. Like, I agree with the
Yeah,
Academy on that one.
yeah. You need to watch
Well, you would
every
think
movie.
after 100 years they'd have figured that out by now.
I don't know how they're going to lock that down. How do you say? Did you watch the movie? Okay. Well, what happens in the third scene? What's the
I
arc?
wonder if they make them like watch it on like a streaming service or
Right.
something, and then they can see that they've watched. You know, have like a kind of like how you have to do like when you have to watch like the sexual harassment videos at work. They can tell you how far we all three laugh because we've been in 8 hours of that. We all know like we saw that you skipped
Oh,
ahead. Um,
hell, you
but
did,
yeah,
you broad.
so uh that being said, I think we all agreed. So, well, James didn't. James thought it should have been the front page, which
Front
probably,
page.
if I watched it, probably, and I think Steven probably acknowledged that.
Oh yeah,
I'm
good
okay
movie.
with it. I'm okay with it winning, because I don't have a dog in the race. But that being said, anything else, gentlemen, before we do our Wheel of Fate to see what we have
Oh
next
my
week?
god, if it's the Broadway melody, I'm going to kill myself. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's just going to be crazy. Like, how can we do the Broadway melody after this? We have to
So,
have something fun. What do y'all
the
think
one,
it's going to be?
well, I kind of want to bring up one thought.
Oh sure.
So, like,
Yeah.
so this is the first Western to win, obviously. Only four movies. It was 60 years
Yeah.
until another Western had won. So the
Was it
1960,
Dances with Wolves or
1990,
Yes,
whatever?
it was
mhm.
Dancing with the Wolves. And
And
then in 1992, Unforgiven.
Yep.
Unforgiven.
2007, No Country for Old Men.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And
How did
the
The
one that
Searchers
probably,
not win with John
Yeah.
Wayne? But of course, that was a tough year.
well,
We'll get to that. But
Wow.
I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon could have won too, but like,
oh no, I haven't
It's
seen
that
that
funny
one.
that it's such an iconic American genre of
Trope or
film.
whatever. Yeah.
For the cowboy movie, the western, and it spilled over into the 50s and 60s, which we don't see anymore. But it took into the 90s when no one really liked going to see westerns for them to really get the approval that they wanted from the Academy. Maybe Freddy
Do you
Krueger
think
movies will
it?
be really popular later on for the
Do you
Academy.
think it maybe it's because it was so saturated when in the TV market that
Maybe, maybe
no one took it serious? Because that's because I've heard, I know you guys heard this before, but TV actors would not take movie acting roles and or maybe it's vice versa. The movie actors would not take TV roles because it was looked
step
down
down,
upon. So I
step
wonder if
down.
it's kind of that
yeah,
same bias to that. But James,
And I
that's a
also
great
probably think
point.
that it was probably that you had these ideas of the white hat, the black hat, all through these westerns, and then in the '90s, we're flipping that idea and we're playing with
yeah,
what that idea is a little bit more in film. They did that quite a bit in the '60s, but I think they really perfected it. Probably, I definitely was Unforgiven. My God, what a great movie.
yeah, yeah. I
James, final thing.
Final thing, if you want to see this movie or not, you won't be enriched for either way or not. But it's
And
okay.
that's a positive review from James.
Yeah, I'm with James. My life has not changed because of this. Like I knew stereotypes were bad before. Thank you, and I knew. Well, I guess I didn't know that Elvis did. Elvis did westerns in the 30s.
I'm telling you, I was just out there. Ever roused
That was my biggest gripe about this. Is that like to me their acting styles just did not match. Like Irene, in my opinion, was the bright spot. Like
Oh
she
yeah,
was such a good, like you could pluck her and I think and put her in today and she would fit right in.
very much so.
Whereas like Yancey felt like Johnny Bravo, like just that like
Yes,
So,
that's a
now, what
good
when you
thank
say
you,
Johnny?
comparison.
Hold on,
thank
I
you,
have to ask this
Mama.
question. When you that's your Johnny Bravo is the cartoon Johnny Bravo. My
Yeah,
Johnny Bravo is Greg Brady and his alter ego when he's a big singer,
but it's still
Johnny
probably this.
Johnny
Yeah, it's
Bravo.
probably still the same. Like
And they're probably, but yeah, probably the
It
right
yeah,
was
person.
just it was just so over the top.
he
Okay,
really
But
okay,
was.
let's
It
go over here,
was
darling. Let's see what we're
so
doing
over the
here.
top.
Whoa, baby.
Um,
Those boots were on point. I'm gonna say,
were they made for
love the
walking?
black boots. Well, he probably does would do the go go at some point, but I was like, those are anything that goes above the knee. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Alrighty. So on that note, let's move into our next
Oh gosh,
movie.
pray for us, people. Pray for us, please.
I'm gonna do it again. So this time I'll change it a little bit. Steven, tell me what decade the
Oh, what
movie.
decade
Yeah,
I would like to see?
we like to do predictions for those who are here. We
I
like try to
think I'd
guess
like
what the
something in
wheel's
the
gonna say.
50s. I'd like to, All About Eve or whatever there is, or
All
something.
right, so 1950s. James, what genre are you looking for?
Oh, give me a good period piece.
Yes. Oh gosh.
I want
Give me a hoop skirt and a ballerina.
I want just like a 90s
Oh
something. I just
gosh.
want something from the 90s.
You just want some
So,
Oh, I
grunge.
want some crazy 80s movie.
Like,
all
oh
right.
my god, that grocery to the max like
On
tulip.
that note, let
Oh my
me
god, that's grody.
share my
Okay,
screen. Can
please.
everybody see my screen?
It's coming. There it is.
Yes.
All
Okay,
right,
big
just so
bucks
you
away.
guys know, right now it is on the best years of our lives, which I actually like, but that's a 4D. I would like to get into a color movie again. Here we go.
Yeah.
And our next
Okay.
movie is
Oh
You
goodness.
Can't Take It With You,
Yay!
1938. So
I've actually never seen it, but I've heard it's
we were
brilliant.
so close to Forrest Gump. Oh, we were one.
Oh,
It was
Mama
Forrest
told me.
Gump and Tom Jones were the ones beside it.
I think we're going to love. I mean, this is Coffin Heart. What do you want? Come on.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, but you're going to have to learn. See, this is going to be a chase for you because you're going to see that I'm not all that stuffy and old. Well, I'm old, but
Oh, actually, so this actually has my favorite actor of all time, Jimmy Stewart, in it. So this actually will
oh
be
yeah,
this will be interesting. So this got a pretty star-studded cast. I pulled it up. It's
yeah,
got Jimmy Stewart and obviously Lionel Barrymore, the two that I recognize right away, and
yeah,
then Gene Arthur. So this might actually be pretty decent. It's got a
yeah, buddy.
7.8 out of 10. So on IMDb. So we can only go up from Cimarron. Um, but
Oh
it
gosh,
was like the Oscar gods are kind of favoring us a little bit
yes they
this week.
are. Thank you,
We
Jesus.
have we have put our sacrifice of Cimarron up. They've accepted it, and now we get a better movie.
And Satan's going to go Broadway Melody one day.
Yeah,
Broadway
yeah.
Melody.
But for those of you who have made it this far, we really do appreciate it. I know this is not a very popular movie, but we thank you for the support. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, especially if you want your comment shouted out. Please leave a comment and we will pick a random person.
Yes.
And we really do appreciate the love and support that we're getting. We also have a TikTok as well where we post shorts on there. Obviously, if you don't have the time, to dedicate almost an hour for a podcast, please give us a follow and like over there. Links in the description. It's the same thing as the Chicago Cinephiles. But otherwise, thank you everyone for joining us. And this is the Chicago Cinephiles signing out.
Later.